So sheet 6, it's gonna be about putting the valves in. Today is the first day we're starting to put the engine back together. Tomorrow you're gonna watch a video for sheet 7. Basically, I just put the piston in and talk about that a little bit. So we'll do sheet 6, 7, and 8 this week, I think, and then 9, 10, and 11 pretty much next week. Should have the engine running next week, if not first the following week, and then we're done. So yay, there's that. Just gonna play it by ear a little bit. Sheet 7 was really a quickie, and I really want to say number 10 is a quickie too. They don't really take any time, so we'll see how that all plays out. Now, here is, oh, you dummy, you gotta share it. You can't just look at yourself, dummy. Now, sheet 6 is this feller. Now, we are going to do what is called lapping in the valves. So you put this gritty toothpaste of stuff on the valve face. We're going to show this in just a jiffy. And then we're going to rub that against the valve face against the valve seat. And then when we do that, it's going to lap in a spot where they rub against each other. That's going to create a good sealing surface. That's the whole point. We want the best seal that we can possibly get. That's the whole point of doing that. So we as you know, we ground the valves a week or two ago, whenever it was. We did not grind the valve seat at all. We ground the valve faces, but not the valve seat. So not really a good way to do that with a small engine. I'm a small tool for that. For the bigger engines we do, but not for the small ones. Life goes on. And so as a result, even if we had done that, we would still be doing this lapping thing to try to make them fit together perfectly. Okay. So we'll be doing that. After we get that off, we'll make sure we get the toothpaste, gritty toothpaste of stuff off of. It's kind of like liquid sandpaper, actually. We'll get that all out of the engine. You don't want that to go through your engine for obvious reasons. And then we're going to put some assembly lube on the valve stems, and then we're going to install the thing. Once we get it in, what you'll notice is we have to put basically the entire engine together. That is camshaft, crankshaft, everything has to go together, because we need to measure what's called the clearance. And so I'm going to draw this picture up. You're like, oh, clearance again? Yes, clearance. Clearance is a huge deal, clearance. So here we go. Somewhere over here, I've got a OneNote. All right, we'll do it that way. I don't care how you do it. Just give it to me. Now, oh, look at that. I got a picture and everything. Here's my valve. Yay. Now, we have ground this off a bit, which means it's going to sit down lower in the block now. Oh, weird. Interestingly enough, there must be, right here, a little bit of gapiosis between the bottom of the stem and the lifter coming up. Now, why is that? Well, they're both made out of metal, and as you know, metal expands when it gets toasty warm, and this engine will get toasty warm. So what's going to happen is they're going to grow towards one another. But if we don't allow room for that to happen, what happens is that the valve is always touching this guy. Wait a minute. But that means that the valve is always going to be open just a skosh. That's correct. Well, that's not going to run. You're right. That's right. It won't run. So I don't know how many times I've seen this happen where people, they get some cool thing like an old tractor, they do some dinkle farting around on it, and they adjust the valves, but they get the valves too tight. And what that means is there's no lash, there's no clearance in there at all to speak of, or not enough. And what ends up happening is the valve never comes all the way close, meaning my engine never develops compression, and we got problems. Excuse me. That is a problem. So we will be measuring that, and we will be adjusting it as need be. On a normal engine, car engine, tractor engine, what have you, there are adjusting screws, and so if you don't have hydraulic lifters, which most new cars, well, all cars since the 50s, pretty much 60s, have had hydraulic lifters. You can put in solid rollers, but we'll talk more about that. Solid lifters, but we'll talk more about that later on. But in this situation, we have a solid lifter, so we have to adjust that load for us. But like an old tractor, guys will buy it, they'll put it together, and they'll do some dinking around on it, and now it doesn't run at all. That's because they set their lash too tight, and the poor old tractor will not run, and it's just awful. Now, It can also have a problem if you get too big a gap. Too big a gap, and the valves will never open all the way, and your poor engine will be going, I can't breathe. All right, because the valves are not opening enough to either suck in the fuel and air or breathe out the exhaust. Okay, this is a huge piece. Okay, now without further ado, we'll get going over here. Set you up so you can see what's going on. There we go. There we go. Nice. I beg your apologies. I had to job last year for a customer, and I'll work on it. Now I get everything back where I had it. Life goes on. Life goes on. Crying over spilled eggnog, for goodness sake. Now, one moment, please, while there's people flying around getting parts out that we need. All righty then. Well, you need those too, stupid. Get those too. All righty. So we need valves. Got them. Lifters. Got them. Crank cams. Got them. One lifter. Where's the other lifter, Jay? What are you doing with it, Jay? Idiot. I found it. We're good. Woo! Woo! All right. And need the side cover as well in a few minutes. All right. Now, I used your engine this morning. To do sheet 7, so I'm going to push the piston back out because I don't really want it in there right now. We'll put it back in some other day. So it's like you can, hey, that's my engine, Mom, when you watch the video later tomorrow. Okay. Now, what we are going to do, we're going to take our keepers and our springs. Keeper, spring. We're taking off of our valve here like so. What we're going to do, taking this here lapping compound, wherever it went, this little tube. It's a gritty looking stuff. And put just a hair of it on the back of this valve. See, there you go. And you don't need a lot. And take your finner and just squish it around. All right, that's cool, Mr. Groom. Awesome. All right. Oh, I can feel the grittiness from here. Yeah, you can. So this one happens to be intake. Let's go ahead and slap that in there. Let's go ahead and put some never sees or assembly lube on here. Whenever you're building an engine, you start off with an assembly lube. Okay. Small engines usually uses never sees, and a car engine, there's a different kind of assembly lube that we'll use, but whatever. And the idea is before the engine starts or has a chance to run, especially on an engine like a car engine, before it has a chance to build pressure, we need to be lubing things. And so this assembly lube is a sticky stuff that'll stay on until the oil has a chance to get there, because we don't want to do damage at startup. Okay. But here it is. So we've lubed it up good. Now we're going to take one of these here lapping tools. Hey, it's a stick with suction cups. That's right. And you're going to, and then rub it between your hands thusly. Now, you hear that? That's the gritty, friends. That means you're laughing. Oh, the room, that's cool, I guess. Now, you can give it the old spit on it if you like. It always kind of creeps me out, to be honest with you, but a lot of guys do it. It's not my big deal, so I'm not going to. I brought several of them. Some of them have better cups than others. Whoop. Nope, that one's terrible. That's terrible. So is that one, apparently. Terrible. I had one this morning. It was working pretty good, but then I had to clean up, so. There we go. Typically, I lift it up and gonna do that. You don't need to go all the way around, back and forth. Okay. Step out of the hole, and what you should see is, oh, Jay, that's a good work, brah. Now, you can kind of see it. It's hard to see on camera. There's kind of a darker circle area, a darker gray circle area right there. That's what we were doing when we were lapping, is creating that. This is a crappy picture. Yeah, there's a darker circled area where they're actually meeting one another. That is the key. Again, you're trying to establish a solid connection between the two so that we do not have a leaking valve scenario. Now, make sure if you've been using lapping compound that you clean thoroughly all that disgusting crap out of the engine, because it would just chew up the entire engine. This is maybe a better picture of it. You see that ring right there? That's the lapping part that we were just doing. We did that. We dressed it up pretty nice. And the idea is that now these two things will fit together pretty buenoly. Now, more assembly lube. Now, this particular style, again, we will use Never Seas quite a bit in the shop. Most of our car engines these days are made out of aluminum, as you well know. And, of course, they're held together with steel bolts. Steel and aluminum, they like each other so much, they kind of tend to stick together, okay? And so a way to fix that is to use this stuff called Never Seas so that they don't stick. Now I'm going to use this compressor tool. I'm going to put my spring in. I'm going to put my keeper on the bottom side. And I'm going to have it facing basically away from me. Turn around and show you in a moment here. Oh, get in there, you hippie. Groom called me a hippie, Mom. All right, there you go. See, this is how I like them put in. Okay, so the big hole is facing away from me. And then I just simply snug the old girl up as tight as I can get it. Nice. Now, what I'm hoping to do is come under here. I'm going to go in. I'm going to get on the valve stem. I'm going to go on there. The valve stem's going to come down through it. And I'm going to see the valve stem sticking out the bottom. Get your hand out of the way. You can see it kind of sort of in there. And that's great. But what's going to happen is, and I can't do this in front of the camera very well except for doing it right here. I'm going to hold it. I kind of tipped it to get it to go in because the bottom, that hole is on the bottom side. I stand it up straight. I push down hard, and then I back this thing off. Oh, and it stayed on. Again, you can tell you've done it correct when you're done. That spring, where are you? Springs, you see it off the bottom of the floor of the thing in here. If you miss, it'll be all the way at the bottom. See again, it's compressed right here, and then it's less compressed toward the top. That means you're on. Nice. Same thing with our exhaust valve. Again, get a little bit of toothpaste on it. Can I use AIM or Aquafresh? Well, no, it's not going to work here. No. Good question, though. Good question. There we go. Drop that in the hole like so. Oh, Mr. Groom, nice work, buddy. He thinks. I affirm you. Oh, you're swell. Thanks. All right, now, same deal here. Again, put your keeper in. So the keeper, I like the keeper facing so that the keeper's on the side away from the handle here. That's the way I like to do it. Everybody's got a slightly different way. It's all the same when it's all said and done. It's just how I like it. Just to me, it makes me feel better than do it that way. Also, the whole, then make sure you drop the keeper on. Oh, I'm an idiot. All right, that was actually free. Don't do that. I wouldn't do that. So put it so that, well, that's not true. I just did it, but you get the point. It's not optimal. And I'm going to hold it like thus. Spread those out. Again, I want the hole towards the top, like that. Go ahead and crimp her down. Now, the first 2 times you do this, it's always the day that people have to do this, there's always this yelling and crying and cursing and so forth. This girl, I just can't do it. I'm a loser and a failure in life. Well, yes, you are. But what does that got to do with putting a valve spring on, for God's sakes? Just calm down, okay? Now, listen, literally, the first time or two you do it wrong. That's how it goes. I don't do it right every time. That's because I don't do it every day. I do it like, what, 4 or 5 times a year, 6 times a year, whatever. And, oh, I didn't do it since last year. Oh, no, Mr. Grimm's lost his touch a little bit. Again, goes on at an angle, stand it up straight, loosen it off. Pop it out of the hole. And voila, once again, it is up off the bottom. Yay, I did it right. Yay, me. Now, we need to finish building this. Now, you recall, we tore it down. One of the instructions was pay attention to which one was the exhaust lifter. And I said to you, what? I said, it really doesn't matter, friends, because what are we going to do? When we put this thing together, one of the things that we are going to do is we're going to grind the valves. So even if these guys were a skosh different in height, it's all going to come out in the wash anyways when I go to put them back together, because I'm going to have to adjust that clearance. So remember, we're going to go ahead and stick one in, intake side down here, and one on the exhaust side. Now we will use lube on these when we put them back together for the final time, okay? It's not right this second. And again, the reason not right this second is we're going to only put it together because what holds these guys in place in order to measure that clearance in there that you can't really see? Well, the camshaft. Well, what holds the camshaft in place? Well, the crankshaft. What holds the crankshaft in place? This side cover. It all has to be on there, or otherwise it will not work. Now, crank's got to go in next. Crank's got to go in next. Our timing mark, recall we have these timing marks on there, needs to be facing the camshaft right there. And then we're going to drop our cam in and line our timing marks up. If I am competent enough, which who knows. Hey, I did it. Yay me. Yay me. There's our timing marks. Woohoo. But notice, I can still do this number with the crankshaft. It goes up and down a little bit, which moves this a little bit, which moves my lifters a little bit. Oh, that's unacceptable, sir, ma'am. So, side cover is going to slide on. Line up the alignment dowels, boom. Then I'm going to put just a couple of bolts in to hold her down so she doesn't jump around on us here. That's all. Just a couple. Now, a wrench. All righty then. Now, we have to measure these clearances, or again, lash, when the valves are closed. That means they're all the way fully down. Now, when will they be all the way fully down? Well, let's find out. As I turn this baby, well, I turned the right way, dummy. There you go. Hey, there's exhaust valve. Hey, there's intake coming open. Sweet. Now inside, I can watch the crankshaft. It's coming up. Boom! We are on a compression stroke right now. Now, if I had a piston up to it, it'd be the piston right at the top. Both valves are closed. They're as closed as they're ever gonna be. This is at which point we're gonna stick our feeler gauges in there and measure those guys in a second. Now, if you're reading along on that thing, you're like, Mr. Groom, you didn't do the part where it said to pour solvent in. I'm not there yet, friend. I wanted to make sure that my valves are 100% closed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour a little bit of this solvent in. Basically, it's diesel into the exhaust port. And I'm going to watch right there and see any exhaust, any of this diesel stuff tries to leak out a little bit. I'm not seeing anything. Everything looks super dry. Now, what does that tell me? It tells me I did a good job. So it tells me if it can leak diesel, it can also leak air. Do the same thing on the intake side. Same thing on the intake side. I'm just going to stand it up kind of on its side there for a jivvy and pour some into its intake manifold. Oops. Oh, you hippie. And I'm going to watch right here See if I see any liquid coming out right here at all. And I don't. Woohoo! Nelly. That makes me happy, friend. Makes me very, very happy. All right. Now, I'm going to do a little cleanup because this is making me disgusted. Gross. Just no. Yuck. And I'm going to use a little bit of this alcohol. Alcohol tends to dry, you know, dry when it evaporates, as opposed to this diesel-y stuff, which makes a mess everywhere. Okay? Now, that said, that means that our valves are completely closed, which is pretty exciting. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty cool, actually. We got our valves so well resurfaced that they do not leak at all. Makes me really happy. I'm going to go wash my hands before I touch my computer again. All right, guess we should check out the instructions and see where we're at here. I think I just do my own little thing, but, you know, whatever. Let's follow directions, Mr. Groom. All right, cool. Oh, look at that. We did it all perfect. Yay. All right. Now, here's the game, Mr. Groom. Already got ahead of himself, didn't he? Because he already put on his timing cover and everything. I mean, the timing cover, the PTO housing. And that's cool. That's cool. Now, in the shop manual, which I happen to not have up, let me pull that up real quick. Go to Giggle Chrome there. All right. Now, if you were not playing along at home and reading on section 6 or page 6, whatever, which chapter should we be in here if we're looking at valves? Which of these chapters should we be looking at if we're talking about valves, and why? We talked about this last week, the Sunday school answer for valves, rings, pistons, cylinders. The Sunday school answer is always, oh wait, I got all day. It's all right. Somebody chat me up.
Compression.
It is compression, sir. Well done. Well done. So if you scroll down here to compression, you will find some good stuff about valves. That's hot. There we go. Now down here a little ways. Adjust the tappet clearance. And it says, table 7 on page 13. Table 7. So notice that we have a, is this a 9 or a 10,000 series engine? 10,000 series engine. Oh, a 10,000 series right here, side. So on the intake side, between 5 and 7 thousandths. On the exhaust, between 7 and 9 thousandths. Now, exhaust typically get hotter. That's why it's going to expand a little bit more. So that's typically why they're left a little bit looser, typically. Okay. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here we go. So let me pull you back up. Let me type that in the chat first. Chat, go. All right. So intake. Exhaust. Boom. Okay, that's up. I won't forget it now. Good for me. All right. Now I want to share. No, I want to share. No, it's my turn to share. All right. So here we go. I will try to zoom in on this process for you. So you can see that little crack right there between the lifter sticking up from the bottom and the end of the valve right there. That is a little bit of clearance right there. And you're like, it's not much. I hope not. It's supposed to be between 5 and 7 thousandths or 7 and 9 depending on which side we're on. Okay. Now, as I've mentioned to you repeatedly, these feeler gauges are kind of small. It's the whole point of them. They go into small places. So what I'm going to always do is I'm going to start off with my smallest one. So 5 thousandths on the intake side. I'm going to stick it in there, see if it goes in. Oh, I must be living right. OMG, gosh. It's literally perfect. It's just the right amount of drag. You do not want to have to jam it in there. So just slide in it. You just kind of feel it dragging across there. If you can do this, wonka, 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 get a bigger feeler gauge. It should just slide in and you should feel it. You can hear it, feel it just dragging across there just a little bit. Not hard. Just feel it a little bit of resistance. That's awesome. So our intake is fine. Now, the reason I always start off with the smallest and I work my way up is because I always want to have a situation where, hey, did I meet the bottom criteria? All right, let's go see if we meet the top criteria. Now, if it was bigger than the 7, ooh, you're gonna have problems. Okay, you're gonna want to have to get yourself a new valve because your valve obviously, and maybe the seat too, is worn out. Okay, but here we go. I'm gonna take a 7 now, and I'm gonna try the 7 on my exhaust. What? It's just a little bit bigger than 7, and I can tell that because it slides in and out a little easier than it should. I'm gonna try the old 8 Rooney here. Oh, that's 3, stupid. Why don't you grab the 8? A, B, C, D, 9, and 10. It's a little bit bigger than the 8 too. Ugh. In the grand scheme of things, it's about 10. Now you're like, oh no, it's terrible. No, it's really not that bad. Okay. What it is that thing has just got a little bit extra wear on it. When I ground the valve down, I probably took a little too much off. I'm sorry, I didn't take that much off as this. I took a little bit off of him. I dressed him up, but I didn't make him that bad. But here's what's happening on this guy. Okay. Is that going to be the end of the world? Not really. It's not the end of the world. 1,000ths is not that critical. Now, if it was down around 6 instead of 7, then that's critical. Okay. In terms of when we look at these things, it's more critical if it's too tight a clearance because that will keep your valves open, and that is a major malfunction. Okay. If, however, it was a situation where you're just a little high, like say 10 instead of 9, you're really not even going to notice it probably 1,000ths on this particular engine. Okay. Now, pulling out one of those tractors out back, for instance, those new old tractors that we just got brought in the other day. Okay. If I wanted to check the valve clearance on those guys, if I left those 2 loose, that is, so 2 things would happen. It wouldn't be able to breathe very well. And you'd also hear a little bit of rattling because those are rocker arm engines. You'd hear the rocker arms rattling underneath there. It's kind of annoying. It's kind of weird. But primarily, your biggest malfunction is if it's too big a gap, then the valves aren't going to open quite as well. 1,000th, again, in this case, not a big deal. I would not worry about this. I literally throw this on my lawnmower day, go mow lawns with it today. Not worried about it. It doesn't scare me at all. Okay. If it would say 12,000ths, that's a problem. You're going to need to fix that. Okay. That's going to be a new valve, probably a new seat. And to be honest with you, in this small engine, you throw this one in the garbage, go get another one. Okay. Because that's just kind of how it works. But in a car engine or something like that, and if you had that kind of ridiculous amount, you'd have to fix that. That's not going to run well at all. Okay. This morning, the 2 that I did this morning were 2 that I had ground, and I had to grind the valves by quite a bit when I was adjusting them because they were kind of messed up. And as a result, I had to take those 2 valves back out, and then I take them over to the grinder. And this is literally how I'm not making this up, Mr. Groom. You're just joking with us. I'm not. No, I'm not. You go over, am I sharing? I am sharing. You take this guy back out, and you take it over to the grinder, and you hold it like so, and you grind some right off the end of the valve stem. That is how you increase the valve clearance, or the tappet clearance, or the valve lash. That's how you do it on these small engines. I do it for both of those on the other one. That's literally what it looks like. That's how you do it. But yours is basically perfect. Again, I can't add it back on. So that valve, you have extra thousandths of lash. Short of changing the valve and the maybe you find a lifter that's 1,000th taller than another lifter. Maybe if you did that, maybe you could find one of those laying around a shop that has maybe 1,000th taller lifter, and you could maybe make it work that way. But short of doing some serious work, buying some new parts, things like that, there's no way to fix it. It's kind of like when the guy cuts your hair and he goes, and you're like, I didn't want that much off. It's too late now. Okay, I can always take more, but can't take less. All right, it's just weird. Okay, can't glue it back on. So again, valve lash, valve tappet clearance. That's what we're talking about right there. That is huge because there's always all the parts are going to expand when they get hot. So we have to allow room for that to happen. If they're too tight, it'll hold your valves open. You will lose compression. If they're too loose, on some models of vehicles, you hear some clattering under the hood, clatter, 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 which is very annoying. But more importantly, your valves will not be opening as far, and that's no bueno. Okay, so those are the two big deals. This is a huge topic, but it's not a very hard thing to do. This morning it seemingly took longer because I had to go grind both of their valves off. Nice. So if you recall, we had 5 to 7 here, 7 to 9 here. We had on the intake side, we had right at 5, and this one was right at about 10, which is a skosh big, but we're gonna run it anyways. Okay. Nice. Again, notice here, do not take too much off. Yeah, exactly. Now we're gonna tear this back apart in a minute. I'll probably just do that off camera. You don't need to watch. I'm just gonna pull everything back out because we forgot to do it. Well, I didn't put in the governor mechanism. That needs to be put in before we're finished. We're also going to need to put on a gasket and a few other things before we put this thing back together for good. So we'll be looking at that next week, or not next week, later this week when we go to put the whole rest of it back together for good. And we'll have to put the piston in and connect it to the crankshaft before we put the cover back on permanently. Okay. Another thing for valve clearance is tappet clearance or valve lash. L-A-S-H, valve lash. And again, why is clearance needed? Because things grow when they get hot. That's why. Okay. And if you didn't allow for that clearance, they'd push your valves open. So as soon as the engine warmed up, all your valves will be partly open, which is not acceptable. Too much clearance, the valves aren't going to open properly. Not going to open all the way. Not enough clearance, they're not going to close. And that's going to be a problem. Now, honestly, more than anything else, especially when you have someone monkeying around with old crap, like an old tractor like that, they think they've done it correct, but they didn't. And they set it too tight. And then the engine starts missing, like it'll miss because that one cylinder will not fire properly. And it won't fire because it doesn't have any compression. And it doesn't have any compression because one of the valves is being held open all the time, which is not optimal. Okay. So that's kind of where we're going with sheet 6. Questions, comments, concerns? Watch the video tomorrow. You will see me putting the piston in. That is it's a fairly short video, although as you know, yours truly does like to talk a lot. So, okay, I think it was a 12-minute video or something, even though it probably took them 1.5 minutes to snap the thing in, but whatever, that's how life goes. I'm the teacher, I get to talk, by God. So that's where we're going. So before Thursday, Thursday's class, we'll be doing sheet 8. And when you come in on Thursday, the piston will be in it, ready to go. And we will just continue on to sheet 8, where we will put on the connecting rod onto the crankshaft. We'll put the cams and lifters back in for good. We'll put the governor piece on, put a gasket on, and we'll put the side cover back on, and then we'll be motoring along. We'll leave the valves in from now. If you're going to take the valves out, If we were going to take the valves back out, okay, then then you have to really make sure that you pay attention to things. Notice that we are going to take the lifters out though. Now, as I said before, I didn't care when we took them out, but I care now because now I have measured. And so now what I'm going to do when I take them out this time, I'm going to put a big fat E on the exhaust valve, tap it, so that I make sure that one gets in. Because they pass muster right now clearance wise, but if I were to swip the two around, one of them might be like 1,000ths bigger than the other one, and that could hurt my intake, for instance, or my exhaust clearance. So it didn't matter when I took it apart the first time, but now that I've measured and I've got my clearances correct, I'm going to make sure that I pay attention to which one was my exhaust valve. I'm going to do that with a great big E on that tappet. Okay, you can't mess up which one's the exhaust valve, but you can mess up which one's the exhaust tappet. And again, it didn't matter the first time, but now that I've decided that this is going in this hole and I've measured my clearances match up, now it matters. You need to keep it that way. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? Anyone? No? All right, peeps. You guys have a great day. Stay out of trouble. Miss you. Not the same.